Welcome to the Week 8 recording for C++ programming. You can see that Week 8 goes from February 25th to March 3rd. Before we jump into that, though, I want to show you a few things to help you as we get down towards the end of this class. We only have a couple of weeks remaining. First thing is this new announcement called Making a Plan to Pass. Of course, as you know, or at least I hope you know, you need 59.5% to pass. My class has 1,000 points. That means you need 595 points. That will be sure that you pass. Because there are 1,000 possible. So what I'd like you to do is, if all you want to do is pass, figure out how many points you have. So like this says, go to the grade book, see how many points you have, subtract it from 595 to see how many more you need. So this student maybe had 235 points, so this student would need 360 more to end up with a D. Now you can also subtract what you have from these other amounts to try to get an A minus, B minus, C minus, etc. So please keep this in mind, because my goal is to have all of you pass, and you can only do it by working and turning in assignments that count lots of points. The other thing to share with you, I've shared this before, is passing plan. If I click on this, it'll give you a passing plan that'll get you about 609 points. So you can see early on, like the write-ups, 30 out of 30, learning plan, you should get 100% on that. The first assignments, fairly simple, so you should get full credit on that. Assignment number 2, you're only doing the lab activity. I mean, you can do more, but if you only do the lab activity, you can get 44 points. Assignment number 3, you can even skip assignment number 3. The quizzes, you should get full credit on the quizzes because they give you the quiz previews. Finishing plan, should get 50 out of 50. So as you can see, you can even skip assignment 4 if you want. You can skip assignment 5 if you want. You can skip assignment 6 if you want. You can skip assignment 7. But I would not suggest that, because assignments 6 and 7 are really easy. So they can make up for some other things. You could probably get a real easy 70% in this class. But anyway, my point is that trying to give you an idea of what you can do to pass the class with 60.9% if you do this. But I would encourage you, assignment 7 is an easy 65. Assignment 6, very easy 65. Now along those lines, what I've done for assignments 4, 5, 6, and 7, I mentioned that right here. For 4, 5, 6, and 7, you do not do the assignment parts. You only do the lab projects. And you turn in that lab project in the assignment Dropbox for that week. So keep that in mind too. You don't have to, all you're doing is the work that you do as you watch the lab, and it shows you exactly what to do. All right, let's go ahead and jump into Project 7. So Project 7, it's all about making a form, and this is going to be an organizer where you can organize data on this. And now one part of this says that actually I'll go ahead and move forward to show you this. So you're going to organize some data, so you're making a database. So you're going to create a Windows form project, you're going to add some menus to it, add a grid for the data, add columns to the grid. We're going to use what's called an XML file. You've heard of HTML. Well, XML is a language that works over the internet and works on computers. So you can see all the work you're going to be doing in this. And the lab shows you exactly how to do it, just like all these labs have. So in this organizer project, it's going to keep track of information. So you can see that this is a list of movies, a movie organizer. And it says you'll make the first half in this, and then next project you'll finish it up. Well, as you can see down below, we don't have a next project. Because of our weeks, I had to get rid of the next project. So you do not have that. But there will be some final coursework. So you're just going to make this basic organizer. And the lab shows you exactly how to do it. So first you want to think about what you might want to organize. Now the example that we're going to see is organizes movies, so you can organize movies if you want. You can make a database of maybe the video games that you have or something like that, or a database of your friends or your classes, whatever you want to do. So as always, you're going to do, or as we did in Project 6, you're going to do a Windows Form project, and this will tell you exactly how to do that. So follow these steps to open up C++, and the next couple of pages you're going to go in and create the forms, the Windows Form project. So follow these steps exactly just like you did in Project 6, and it showed you exactly how to create the Windows Form project. So you're going to change the name of it to the word organizer, and you're going to save it into the folder that you've been using all along, your username folder in your C++. So make sure you save everything exactly where it needs to go. Now let's go take a look at the Class Connect write-up to see if we have any questions coming up. And the first question, what type of file will you create in this unit and what will you add to it? That was on page 1 of Lab 1. So I think I missed that, so let's go back to it. Okay, so in Lab 1, well, the file we're going to create is a Windows Form project, and we're going to add a file menu to it. So that answers that first Class Connect write-up question. Windows Form project we're going to create, and we're adding a file menu to it. So let's jump ahead here. I think we're like right in here. The next Class Connect write-up question asks about what the process is to change your form. And this is going to have you go in and change a form, doing some customizing on it. And customizing is a process to change a form. It's called customizing. Let's go to the write-up, see where we are. Process called to change the way your form appears called customizing. And question is explain what a menu strip is. So we'll get to that. So save all, then you're going to debug it, make sure you have no bugs, make sure your example looks exactly like theirs. If not, you want to fix the problems early on. A menu strip is a bar at the top of a window with one or more menus. So you can see right here the menu strip is item name, category. So that's what a menu strip is. So you're going to add a menu strip object. And if you remember from Project 6, objects are easy to work with. You work off of the toolbar, so you view toolbar. So you can find the toolbar and then you'll find menu strip. If you can't find it, then you might need to click the plus sign so everything opens up in the window. Then you just drag and drop, just like you did back in Project 6. Working with Windows with the forms is just drag and drop. Now you're going to add a menu to it, so you can see how easy you're doing this. Then we have to add a menu option. And again, doing exactly what it says. Then you're going to program some interface objects. These mean objects that interface means that they are interactive. So they're objects that you're going to create and follow the directions. I can't say that enough, although I probably am saying it way too much. So make sure yours has all these things in here exactly. So save, debug. If it says out of date, click yes to rebuild it. So yours will just open up as a window like this with nothing to it yet. So we created a Windows Form project. We have the strip menu, menu options. So now we're going on to Lab 2. Let's go to the write-up questions. The write-up question explain how the data grid is used. Well, we'll use my grid as the grid object. So you're opening your project, follow the directions to open it. Don't just go in and click to open it. You have to use a particular process, just like we learned early on in the course. C++ wants to be opened appropriately. So data grid is a list of data with columns and rows. And the data grid view, that'll have the objects in it. And the nice thing, once a program has a data grid, you can add columns to it, and the columns are what you use to organize your information. So you're going to add the data grid view object right here. Let's go back to the write-up, see if we answered that question. Explain how the data grid is used. That's actually not on page 3, that's on page 4. So the data grid, or page 4, it's on page 3. So the data grid is used to add columns. That's how the data grid is used. The data grid is used to add columns. So you're adding the data grid view object. And now you're going to name it, but you can't use like there are certain parameters. Now when you go to name it, it's going to want to call it data grid view 1 because that's the first of the data grid views, but we want to give it a more user-friendly name. So you can see what we're going to do here. The default name is data grid view 1 because that's the first data grid object you've created. But we're going to call it my grid. And the reason we're calling it my grid is because it's shorter and easier to type. That's all. And it's easier to remember, right? So that was the Class Connect write-up question. Why are we calling it my grid? Well, that's why. It's shorter and easier to type. Now there are some limitations to name because we know that name is a protected word in C++, so you can't call anything name. You can put item underscore name. There are all kinds of ways you can change that, but it's a reserved word. Now you're adding columns to your data grid object. Follow these directions to add columns. Show you exactly what to do. Check your work, make sure you go through the debugging process, fix it, and you should end up with something like this. If not, then go back, make sure all the steps you have are correct. So we added data grid and we added 2 columns to the data grid. Let's go look at the write-up as we move into Lab 3. So in Lab 3, in what ways can XML be used? What is the advantage of using XML? Okay. So Lab 3. So just as many of you know, HTML is hypertext markup language. We're going to be using a different language in here to communicate with our data objects, with the grid we're creating. It's called extensible markup language, so almost like HTML, right? And it can be used a couple of ways. XML can be used to display information on the internet or to keep track of information inside a computer. So those are the 2 ways right here that XML can be used. So it can work within your computer or over the internet. And the thing about them, they're text files, they're easy to use, and the reason programmers use it is that because it's a text file, it can be edited like other text files. It makes it easier to store information in. So let's look at that Class Connect write-up question, see what it said. Why will we use MyGrid? No. What is an advantage of using XML coding? Well, advantage of using XML coding is that it can be edited like any other text file. That's the advantage of using XML coding. Now, there are no more questions for the write-up on this, so I just want to go through the different steps you're going to do. So you're going to create the XML file. So new file, general, XML file. So again, just follow the directions. So once you open it, you want to get it saved. And that way you know you have it available to work on it. Make sure you name it appropriately. Now you need to add it to the project. So these steps will show you adding it to the project. because that file is actually different from the project, so we need to make it a part of the project. So we just add it in. And then you need to create the element. So just like we've created objects before, we need to create the element that actually houses that XML coding that we've created, essentially is how it works. So just work through this to add that element to your program. And as always, you can also watch the demonstration. So you can click there and it'll show you a demonstration of exactly how to do that. So I think you're finding that doing Windows Forms is so much easier than doing coding. So you're going to add a couple of items in. Make sure you look at these tips too to make sure that you're doing things properly. You're going to put an attribute. An attribute is something that gives something a value. So you're going to put an attribute in. And in this coding, which word is the attribute? The number 4, the word garage, car. Wheels is because it describes the car by telling you how many wheels there are. So that's the attribute, that's the value, right? So that's just a little brush up on what an attribute is. So now you're going to go ahead and add a couple of attributes. So again, follow directions and things work out great. Check your work. Start debugging, build if you need to, etc. Actually, the one key to that, let me go back one screen. As it said right here, make sure that this folder is in the same place as the Organizer VC project. So there's Organizer VC project, there's data.xml. They need to be in the same area, otherwise they can't see each other. They can't communicate and work together. So we created an XML file, added files to the project, and created elements and attributes. Now we're into the final lab for this. So we're going to code the program to store the data that we want. So open your project. I'll go to the write-up, and the write-up asks, what does the XML namespace do for programmers? Well, the XML namespace makes it easier for you to type commands you'll need for working with your XML file. So just like we used namespace previously in other C++, now we can do it within HTML or XML. And what it does for programmers is it makes it easier to type your commands you'll need for the XML file. So we're going to add in the XML namespace. So you can see up here you're going to have different forms open, different tabs. So make sure you're in the correct tab to do what you need to do. Go back to the write-up and match it XML. In this program, what is the usefulness of a data set object? Well, the usefulness of data set object is that it is good at storing information in columns and rows. That's the usefulness of a data set object. So you can see that this data set object we created is storing information in columns and rows. So usefulness is that it's good at storing information in columns and rows. Now we're going to declare the data set and make sure you use the proper symbol. That's called the caret, and on most keyboards it's going to be shift and the number 6 on your keyboard. That'll give you a caret. See how the caret is used down here? So shift and the number 6. Now we're going into data management. And data management is useful for a computer and the data management object because it helps the computer manage its memory by getting rid of data it no longer needs, so that it can clear out memory for the computer. So that's the usefulness of a data manage object, is that the computer can get rid of memory that it no longer uses, or information no longer uses in memory. So what is the usefulness of the data set object? We just said that. And what does a data manage object do for the computer? That's the one that we just answered. So the data set object helps the computer manage its memory by getting rid of data it no longer needs. So those are all the Class Connect questions. We're going to go all the way through this pretty quickly to get through these pages, where you're going to declare your object, the data set object. So you're creating that just like you've created other objects. You created an object earlier with your form. Now you're creating your data set. And now we need to program the form. So we're going to get our form is over here, and we're going to make it to where the program knows to use that XML data file. You can see everything you're going to do. So you're going to use this particular code. And you can, if you have to put this code in your program, you can just do that and then hit Control-C, copy and paste it into your program if you wanted to. I've demonstrated that on some of the coding we did earlier in the class. So now create the data set object. And the word "this" is used in programming in many instances. So you'll see how you're going to use that a little bit later. What this just telling you is that this is a key term, a key word that you use in programming. Now looking at these, of course, that's going to be the minus sign and then the right-hand arrow. So you can see how that's going to be used. And make sure you use the minus sign and not the underscore. So you're going to add the code to read this tells the computer to go read the XML file that I created. Otherwise the computer wouldn't know what to do. So right now the program reads the XML file, stores the data in the object called DSList. Now we still need to display it in the data grid so it comes up on the screen. So it's holding it until we tell it to display. So now this coding is going to say, hey, go get my grid, and whatever is in my grid is going to be the data source. So you can see down here how all that works together. Make sure your language is correct. Now your program should look exactly like this. So you can scroll down, make sure it looks exactly like that. Debug, rebuild if you need to, check for build errors. If there are errors, then you need to fix it. Now you still have a couple of errors with it. First problem is there are too many columns, so yours will be showing up like this. And the organizer is still set where people can add or delete entries. We don't want them to be able to do that. So we need to edit the grid properties, so go through the steps to get this edited to fix. So we're going to do a find and replace. We're going to find something and replace it with something else. You'll see how easy that is to do the coding, so you don't have to search through the whole thing on your own. Follow those steps exactly. Check your work. Again, make sure everything is accurate. Make sure it does not have the extra rows. So summary, we did all this. Namespace, declared the data set object, put data in a data set object, had it show up on the screen. Then you ended up doing all of this, creating this. So this one has something different. It has a challenge, but if you submit this, you would turn this into the assignment 7 Dropbox, and it's worth 65 points. But what I will do, here's a challenge. If you go in and add more information to your data set, instead of just 2, if you get 10 items in your data set, I'll give you a 10% bonus. So go for that 10% bonus, add 8 more items, so you end up with a total of 10 items in your data set. So go ahead and add that if you want the bonus to get 10% more points. Otherwise, just turn it in as you did it through the labs, and you can get just the regular 65 out of 65. So again, that's going to be turned in assignment 7. And assignment 7, as I said earlier, I've changed these. So it's organizer part 1. And that's all you need to turn in. Actually, what it says here is to add at least 4 more elements for a total of 6. I'll take your organizer just as is with 2, but if you add 8 more, then I'll give you the bonus points. Compile and run it, make sure it works right. Okay, everybody, I look forward to your work coming in, and we're getting down to the wire here, just a couple weeks left. So if you need to make a passing plan, you know how to do that. If you want to look at a sample passing plan, you know where that's available. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.